For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a snowy December evening in 1989, the Parker family boarded the Trans-Siberian Express in Moscow, embarking on what should have been the academic journey of a lifetime. Dr. Wesley Parker, his wife Paige, and their children Chloe and Zachary settled into their first-class compartment as the train departed for Vladivostok. They never reached their destination. Despite an extensive international search operation spanning 2 continents, the American family seemed to have vanished into the vast Siberian wilderness. For 3 decades, their disappearance remained one of the Cold War's most baffling mysteries, leaving 2 nations searching for answers. Then, in 2019, during a routine renovation of an aging railway car, workers made a chilling discovery behind a false wall. This is the complete investigation into what happened to the Parker family and the dark secrets that lay hidden within the Trans-Siberian Railway for 30 years. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. On the night of October 12, 1989, the Trans-Siberian Railway cut through the vast Siberian wilderness like a steel serpent, its rhythmic clatter echoing across the empty landscape. Inside first-class compartment 214, the Parker family settled in for what would become their final evening together. Dr. Wesley Parker, a distinguished linguistics professor from Stanford University, had spent the day documenting local dialects at their previous stop in Irkutsk, while his wife Paige helped translate conversations with local academics. Their children, 12-year-old Chloe and 10-year-old Zachary, had been excited about the journey, treating it as an adventure rather than their father's research expedition. That evening, other passengers would later recall seeing the family sharing dinner in the dining car, with Chloe practicing her newly learned Russian phrases with the attendant. The last confirmed sighting of the Parkers came at 9:45 p.m. when Alina Dmitrieva, the evening attendant, brought them their requested tea service. She remembered Dr. Parker working intently at the small compartment desk, surrounded by notebooks and audio tapes, while Paige helped the children prepare for bed. The family had requested a wake-up call for 7, and the following morning. When morning came, the gentle knock of Mikhail Kuznetsov, the day attendant, went unanswered. After several attempts, he used his master key to enter the compartment, expecting to find the family still asleep. Instead, he discovered an empty cabin that appeared frozen in time. 4 cups of half-drunk tea sat cold on the fold-out table. The children's pajamas were laid out on their bunks. Wesley's research materials remained scattered across the desk, including his prized audio recorder. All 4 passports lay untouched in the document holder by the door. The family's luggage remained perfectly stowed in the compartment's storage spaces. Paige's reading glasses rested on her open novel. Chloe's diary sat bookmarked on her bunk, her last entry describing her excitement about seeing Lake Baikal the previous day. Zachary's treasured collection of Soviet railway pins remained pinned to his backpack. Nothing appeared disturbed or taken. The discovery triggered an immediate search of the train. Conductor Ivan Sokolov ordered his staff to check every car, every bathroom, and every possible space where a family of 4 might be found. As the train continued its eastward journey toward Khabarovsk, no trace of the Parkers emerged. Their overnight disappearance seemed to defy logic. How could 4 people vanish from a moving train without anyone noticing? Railway police boarded at the next major station, led by Inspector Dmitry Petrov. His initial examination of the compartment revealed no signs of forced entry or struggle. The windows were securely locked from the inside. The connecting doors to adjacent compartments showed no signs of tampering. The only items missing were the clothes the family had been wearing and Wesley's small leather notebook that witnesses had seen him carrying the previous evening. Temperature logs from that night showed the outside temperature had dropped to -15 degrees Celsius. The idea that the family might have voluntarily left the train seemed impossible given the harsh conditions and remote location. Yet the alternative, that something more sinister had occurred, seemed equally implausible given the lack of evidence. News of the disappearance reached Moscow within hours. American embassy officials scrambled to coordinate with Soviet authorities, but the political climate of the late Cold War period complicated matters. As the train continued its scheduled route to Vladivostok, each passing hour diminished the chances of finding the Parker family alive. Back in California, colleagues at Stanford University struggled to comprehend the situation. Dr. Parker had been meticulous in his research preparations, sharing detailed itineraries and maintaining regular contact with his department. His last phone call to the university, made from Irkutsk station, had given no indication of any concerns. He had spoken enthusiastically about the linguistic variations he was documenting among rural Siberian communities. The disappearance of the Parker family would launch one of the most puzzling investigations in Trans-Siberian railway history, spanning 2 continents and 3 decades. Their empty compartment, preserved in photographs taken by Inspector Petrov, would become an enduring image of one of the Cold War's most mysterious incidents. But in those first confused hours after their discovery, no one could have imagined the dark truth that would take 30 years to emerge from the shadows of history. As dawn broke over the Siberian landscape, Inspector Dmitry Petrov arrived at compartment 214, his weathered face reflecting decades of railway police experience. Yet nothing in his 23 years of service had prepared him for the peculiarity of this scene. The morning sun streamed through the window, illuminating 4 teacups with lipstick marks and fingerprints still clearly visible on their surfaces. Petrov began his investigation with methodical precision, photographing every detail of the compartment before anything was touched. The temperature of the teacups, the position of each personal item, the angle of Wesley Parker's chair at the desk, everything was documented with painstaking attention. What struck him immediately was the absence of disorder. No signs of panic, no evidence of resistance, no indication of forced entry. The inspector's attention turned to the compartment's security features. The windows, sealed against the bitter Siberian winter, could only be opened with a special tool held by trained staff. The corridor side door showed no signs of tampering, its lock mechanism intact. Even the ventilation ducts were too small for a child to pass through, let alone an adult. Interviews with passengers in neighboring compartments proved equally baffling. In compartment 213, elderly Russian couple Viktor and Marina Popov had slept soundly through the night, hearing nothing unusual. The British tourists in 215, John and Margaret Wells, reported only the normal sounds of the train's movement. The corridors had been monitored by regular staff patrols, with no reports of unusual activity. The night attendant, Elena Dmitrieva, provided the last confirmed interaction with the family. Her description of Dr. Parker working late into the night aligned with his known research habits. She noted nothing unusual about the family's behavior, though she recalled Paige Parker requesting an extra blanket due to the cold. Petrov's team collected fingerprints throughout the compartment, but they only confirmed what they already knew: the Parkers had occupied the space. The only anomaly was a partial print on the outside door handle that didn't match any passenger or crew member, but its incomplete nature made it of limited value. The inspector's attention turned to Wesley Parker's research materials. The audio tapes contained recordings of local dialect interviews, exactly what one would expect from a linguistics professor. His notebook computer, advanced for 1989, held similar academic content. Yet the missing leather notebook mentioned by witnesses nagged at Petrov's investigative instincts. Communication with American authorities proved frustrating. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow demanded immediate action, while Soviet officials insisted on maintaining control of the investigation. Petrov found himself caught between diplomatic tensions that threatened to overshadow the actual investigation. By midday, search parties had been organized at every station along the route. Helicopters scanned the tracks between stops, their crews battling harsh weather conditions. Local police checked hospitals and villages, but the vast emptiness of the Siberian landscape seemed to have swallowed the Parker family without a trace. The children's belongings proved especially poignant. Chloe's diary entries painted a picture of wide-eyed wonder at the journey. Zachary's carefully curated collection of railway pins spoke to a boy's fascination with trains. These personal effects, combined with their parents' professional materials, suggested no preparation for departure, planned or otherwise. As the first day of investigation drew to a close, Petrov faced a troubling reality. Either the Parker family had somehow left the train voluntarily, despite leaving behind everything they owned and facing certain death in the freezing Siberian night, or something far more sinister had occurred. Something that left no trace in a confined space under near-constant observation. The inspector's preliminary report reflected this impossible puzzle. Physical evidence suggested the family had simply vanished into thin air, while logic dictated such a thing could not happen. As night fell again over the Trans-Siberian Railway, the mystery of Compartment 214 deepened, and Dmitry Petrov realized this case would haunt him for years to come. As weeks turned into months, the disappearance of the Parker family gradually faded from international headlines, though the mystery continued to haunt those closest to the investigation. Inspector Dmitry Petrov's once promising leads evaporated one by one, leaving him with a case file that grew thick with dead ends and unanswered questions. By early 1990, the political landscape between the United States and Soviet Union further complicated matters. Requests for information from American authorities were met with increasingly bureaucratic delays. Files that might have shed light on similar disappearances along the Trans-Siberian route were deemed classified, locked away in archives that neither Petrov nor his American counterparts could access. At Stanford University, Dr. Parker's office remained untouched, his research notes and linguistic recordings gathering dust. His department colleagues had organized weekly meetings to share information and press for answers, but attendance dwindled as hope faded. Professor Sarah Chen, Wesley's closest academic collaborator, continued writing letters to Soviet authorities long after others had given up, each response more perfunctory than the last. Page's sister, Jennifer Roberts, traveled to Moscow 3 times between 1990 and 1992, exhausting her savings in desperate attempts to uncover new information. She walked the platforms of every station along the Trans-Siberian route, where the train had stopped that night, showing photographs of her sister's family to locals who might remember something. Her persistence earned only sympathetic looks and shrugged shoulders. The children's school in Palo Alto maintained a memorial display in the library, featuring Chloe's award-winning essay about Russian culture and Zachary's detailed drawings of trains. Their empty desks served as painful reminders of lives interrupted, of futures erased without explanation. By 1993, the dissolution of the Soviet Union threw the investigation into further disarray. Records were lost or destroyed during the transition. Key witnesses, including several train staff members, became unreachable as borders shifted and communities dispersed. Inspector Petrov found himself repeatedly requesting access to files that no one could locate, dealing with officials who claimed no knowledge of the case. A few journalists attempted to revive interest in the story. A Moscow-based reporter, Natasha Ivanova, published a series of articles suggesting a pattern of unexplained disappearances along the Trans-Siberian route spanning several decades. Her research hinted at a darker narrative, but without official cooperation, she couldn't verify her suspicions. Her articles earned her a transfer to a remote regional paper, and the story died once again. In 1994, the FBI officially classified the Parker case as cold, though it remained open. The final report acknowledged multiple theories but reached no conclusions. The family might have been victims of foul play, might have chosen to disappear, might have met with an accident and been disposed of by panicked train staff. Each possibility seemed equally implausible, yet impossible to disprove. The case took its toll on those who couldn't let it go. Inspector Petrov requested a transfer from the railway police in 1995, unable to shake the image of that empty compartment. Jennifer Roberts eventually sought counseling to cope with the loss of her sister's family, the lack of closure proving more devastating than death itself. The years rolled by, and the mystery of Compartment 214 became something of a legend among Trans-Siberian railway staff. New conductors heard whispered stories about the American family who vanished into the Siberian night. Some claimed to hear children's laughter in empty first-class compartments. Others avoided spending too much time around the section where the Parkers had last been seen. By the late 1990s, the case existed primarily in dusty archives and fading memories. The few remaining active investigators had moved on to other cases, though some kept copies of the file, unable to completely abandon the mystery. The Parker family joined the ranks of the permanently missing, their disappearance adding another dark chapter to the Cold War's legacy of unsolved mysteries. Yet in the quiet corners of railway offices and government archives, the truth lay waiting, preserved in forgotten files and sealed compartments. It would take another 20 years before renovation workers would accidentally unlock the first piece of a puzzle that had confounded investigators for nearly 3 decades, finally beginning to unveil the terrible fate of the Parker family. In the crisp autumn morning of September 2019, the screech of power tools echoed through the aging carriages of Train 244, a decommissioned Trans-Siberian passenger car undergoing renovation at the Vladivostok Railway Yard. Lead restoration worker Mikhail Antonov guided his crew through the routine task of modernizing the first-class compartments when their equipment revealed something extraordinary. The discovery began with an anomaly in the wall measurements between compartments 214 and 215. While checking the structural integrity, Antonov's thermal imaging equipment detected an inexplicable void, a hidden space that appeared on no blueprint. Initial probing revealed a carefully concealed door mechanism, its edges masked by decades of paint and wallpaper. When the workers finally breached the sealed compartment, the musty air that escaped carried with it 30 years of secrets. The space, barely larger than a closet, contained human remains. 4 sets of skeletal remains, to be precise, arranged with a chilling orderliness that spoke of deliberate placement rather than panic or struggle. Among the bones lay preserved fragments of clothing that would later be identified as matching the descriptions of what the Parker family had been wearing on that October night in 1989. A child's shoe, still bearing a scuff mark that Chloe's mother had described in her last letter home, removed any doubt about the victims' identities. But it was Dr. Wesley Parker's leather notebook, the one missing from the original inventory, that would prove most revealing. Protected from decay in a sealed plastic bag, its pages contained far more than linguistic research. Interspersed between notes on regional dialects were detailed descriptions of suspicious activities Parker had observed on the train, coded messages passed between staff members, mysterious packages exchanged at remote stations, and most significantly, references to a conductor named Alexei Volkov. The forensics team, led by Dr. Yelena Kozlov, worked methodically through the hidden compartment. Their analysis revealed that the space had been part of an elaborate system used for smuggling sensitive documents during the Cold War. The compartment's design allowed access from both adjacent cabins through concealed panels, creating a secret corridor for moving materials undetected. Dr. Kozlov's examination of the remains told a grim story. Marks on the bones indicated the family had been killed efficiently, likely by someone with military training. The children had died first, followed by their mother, and finally Dr. Parker himself. The killer had positioned the bodies carefully, almost respectfully, before sealing the compartment, a detail that would later prove crucial in understanding the perpetrator's psychology. The notebook's contents proved explosive. Parker had unknowingly documented the operations of one of the Cold War's most successful document smuggling networks. His linguistic expertise had allowed him to recognize patterns in the coded communications between railway staff, though he hadn't understood their true significance until it was too late. As news of the discovery spread, the Russian authorities faced a difficult decision. The hidden compartment contained evidence of not just one family's murder, but of a systematic operation that had claimed other victims over decades. Similar compartments were soon discovered in other renovated carriages, some still containing damning Soviet-era documents that had never reached their intended Western recipients. The revelation sent shockwaves through both Russian and American intelligence communities. Former KGB officers, now elderly, began speaking about Operation Railway Ghost, a program that had used the Trans-Siberian line to transport classified information. The Parker family had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, their academic curiosity intersecting fatally with one of the Cold War's most closely guarded secrets. For Inspector Petrov, now retired, the discovery brought bitter vindication. His original investigation had been deliberately obstructed by Soviet officials who knew the truth, but chose to protect their intelligence network over solving the murders. The hidden compartment contained evidence that would eventually connect dozens of other disappearances to the same operation, each one a life sacrificed to maintain the secret of the ghost train that carried more than just passengers through the Siberian night. In early October 2019, CIA agent Catherine Murphy sat at her desk in Langley, Virginia, surrounded by newly digitized files from the Parker case. The discovery in Vladivostok had transformed a decades-old mystery into an active investigation, and Murphy's expertise in Cold War-era operations made her the natural choice to lead the American side of the inquiry. The agent's first breakthrough came while cross-referencing trained staff records with Soviet intelligence files. Alexei Volkov's name appeared repeatedly, though never in obvious ways. His personnel file listed him as a simple conductor, but his movements along the Trans-Siberian route aligned perfectly with documented information leaks to Western intelligence agencies. Murphy's investigation revealed that Volkov had served in Soviet military intelligence before joining the railway, explaining his expertise in both espionage and efficient killing. His training would have made him perfectly capable of silently eliminating an entire family and concealing their bodies without drawing attention. Working alongside Russian investigators, Murphy began mapping the extent of Volkov's network. The conductor had cultivated a web of loyal staff members across the railway system, from station masters to maintenance workers. Each played a small role in the larger operation, many unaware of its true scope or deadly nature. Former railway workers, now in their 70s and 80s, began sharing stories they had kept silent for decades. They spoke of Volkov's authority, his careful attention to detail, and his absolute intolerance for security risks. One retired attendant, speaking on condition of anonymity, described how Volkov could change from charming to terrifying in an instant if he suspected someone of compromising his operation. The investigation uncovered a pattern of disappearances spanning 20 years. When Murphy overlaid these incidents with Volkov's duty roster, a chilling correlation emerged. At least 15 other passengers had vanished during his tenure, each case bearing similar characteristics to the Parker disappearance. No signs of struggle, belongings left behind, and no bodies ever found. Dr. Wesley Parker's recovered notebook proved invaluable to the investigation. His linguistic training had enabled him to detect patterns in the crew's communications that would have seemed innocent to most observers. Murphy realized that Parker had unknowingly documented the network's entire operational structure in his detailed notes about regional dialect variations. The most disturbing evidence came from maintenance records. The hidden compartments had been built during the train's original construction, suggesting the smuggling operation had been planned from the very beginning. Each compartment could be accessed through cleverly disguised panels, allowing Volkov's team to move sensitive materials and dispose of bodies, without ever being seen in the corridors. Railway station archives revealed that Volkov had always requested assignment to the same train cars, specifically those containing the hidden compartments. His personnel evaluations consistently praised his attention to detail and dedication to maintaining order on his route. In retrospect, these commendations took on a sinister new meaning. Murphy's investigation also exposed the extent of official complicity. Senior Soviet railway administrators had known about the smuggling operation and its deadly security measures, but chose to protect it. The value of the intelligence being gathered had outweighed any moral considerations about passenger safety. As the evidence mounted, Murphy began to understand why the original investigation had failed. Inspector Petrov had never had a chance of solving the case. Every inquiry he made had been quietly deflected by officials who knew the truth, but were bound by state secrets to maintain silence. The final pieces fell into place when Murphy interviewed Volkov's former colleagues. They described a man devoted to his mission, who viewed civilian casualties as regrettable but acceptable costs in the larger game of international espionage. The Parker family's deaths had been just another operational necessity to him, their bodies hidden away with the same efficiency he applied to all aspects of his work. By December 2019, Murphy had compiled enough evidence to definitively close the case. The investigation revealed not just how the Parkers died, but the full scope of a deadly espionage operation that had turned the world's longest railway into a battleground of the Cold War. The truth had finally emerged from the shadows, though too late for justice to be served to the man responsible for so many deaths. In the winter of 2020, a junior archivist at the former KGB headquarters in Moscow made a discovery that would finally break the Parker case wide open. While digitizing decades of personnel files, she stumbled upon a sealed envelope marked with a single name, Alexei Volkov. Inside was a handwritten confession, penned just days before his death in 1995. The confession detailed the events of October 12, 1989, with the clinical precision that had characterized Volkov's entire career. He described how he had been monitoring the American professor for several days, growing increasingly concerned about the man's keen interest in crew communications. That evening, during his routine check of the first-class compartments, Volkov had noticed Dr. Parker making detailed notes about what he believed to be linguistic patterns among the staff. According to Volkov's account, he had waited until after midnight, when the train was passing through the most remote stretch of track between stations. Using his conductor's key, he entered compartment 214 silently. The children were already asleep in their bunks. Dr. Parker sat at his desk, still working by lamplight, while his wife dozed in an armchair with a book in her lap. Volkov described the next moments with disturbing detachment. He had been trained to eliminate security risks quickly and quietly. The children never woke up. Mrs. Parker had only time for a muffled gasp. Dr. Parker managed to turn from his desk, recognition and horror dawning in his eyes as he realized the true nature of the patterns he had uncovered. The conductor's confession revealed the sophisticated network he had built over 2 decades. The Trans-Siberian Railway had been the perfect conduit for moving classified documents out of the Soviet Union. Station masters, maintenance workers, and fellow conductors all played their parts, willingly or through coercion. The hidden compartments, built into the train cars during construction, had served both for document transport and, when necessary, the disposal of those who discovered the operation. Volkov wrote of other victims: a Japanese businessman in 1983, a German tourist in 1985, a Soviet physicist and his wife in 1987. Each had noticed something they shouldn't have, asked questions better left unasked. The Parker family had simply been the latest in a long line of necessary sacrifices to maintain the security of his network. The confession explained the methodical cleanup that followed each elimination. Volkov had developed a precise system for dealing with bodies and evidence, using the hidden compartments that honeycombed the train structure. He took pride in the fact that no trace was ever found, no pattern ever established by investigators. Most chilling were Volkov's reflections on the Parker children. He expressed a detached regret at their deaths, noting that in other circumstances, he might have only eliminated the parents. But his decades of experience had taught him that leaving witnesses, regardless of their age, created unnecessary risks. In his mind, the children's deaths were simply part of maintaining operational security. The document provided exact details about the hidden compartment where he had concealed the bodies, matching perfectly with the 2019 discovery. Volkov had chosen that particular space because it was the furthest from regular maintenance areas, unlikely to be discovered during routine work. He had sealed it personally, using techniques learned during his military intelligence training. Volkov's confession ended with a cold assessment of his life's work. He estimated that his network had successfully moved thousands of classified documents to Western intelligence agencies, playing a significant role in the Cold War's intelligence battle. The deaths he had caused were, in his view, a small price for such valuable service to both sides of the conflict. The discovery of Volkov's confession provided the final proof needed to close dozens of cold cases. It confirmed the suspicions that Inspector Petrov had harbored for years about an organized operation on the railway. It explained why so many investigations had been quietly discontinued, why so many records had disappeared, why so many witnesses had suddenly become unavailable. For the families of the victims, including the Parkers' relatives, the confession offered little comfort but much-needed answers. The document's clinical tone, its matter-of-fact description of calculated murders, painted a picture of systematic evil operating in plain sight, protected by the very authorities tasked with preventing such crimes. In the end, Volkov's written admission transformed the Parker case from an enduring mystery into a stark reminder of the Cold War's human cost. His words revealed how ordinary people, a professor, and his family on an academic adventure, could become caught in the machinery of international espionage, their lives deemed expendable in service of a greater game. In January 2021, beneath the golden domes of Moscow's Christ the Savior Cathedral, hundreds gathered to honor the Parker family and other victims of the Trans-Siberian railway murders. The memorial service, 3 decades overdue, brought together families from across the globe who had lost loved ones to Alexei Volkov's deadly operation. Jennifer Roberts, Paige Parker's sister, stood before the assembled mourners clutching her sister's recovered wedding ring. The small gold band had been found in the hidden compartment, carefully wrapped in tissue paper, one final, haunting detail of Volkov's methodical nature. Her voice trembled as she spoke of Christmas mornings never shared, birthdays uncelebrated, lives unlived. The Russian government's official acknowledgement of the crimes came in the form of a comprehensive report. The document detailed 32 confirmed victims spanning 2 decades, though investigators suspected the true number was higher. The report also revealed the elaborate network of hidden compartments throughout the railway system, with similar chambers discovered in 17 different train cars. Dr. Yelena Kozlov's analysis of the recovered Soviet documents exposed the operation's vast scope. The smuggling network had moved an estimated 12,000 classified files westward, making it one of the Cold War's most successful intelligence operations. The human cost of maintaining this network, she noted in her findings, represented one of the era's darkest legacies. The Trans-Siberian Railway underwent a complete security overhaul following the revelations. Every train car was thoroughly inspected. Hidden spaces were sealed or converted to legitimate storage, and new protocols were established to prevent similar operations from taking root. The railway's management commissioned a permanent exhibition at the Moscow Railway Museum, ensuring the victims' stories would not be forgotten. At Stanford University, the linguistics department established the Parker Family Memorial Fellowship, supporting research in Siberian languages and cultures. The first recipient, a young scholar from Irkutsk, dedicated her work to completing the dialectical study Wesley. Parker had begun on his final journey. Chloe and Zachary's former school in Palo Alto transformed their memorial display into a permanent installation. Their recovered belongings, Chloe's diary, Zachary's railway pins, were displayed alongside their photographs, reminding new generations of students about the importance of truth and justice, no matter how long delayed. Inspector Dmitry Petrov, now in his 80s, finally found the peace that had eluded him since that October morning in 1989. The confirmation of his long-held suspicions brought no joy, but it validated the doubts that had forced him from his career. In his last interview, he spoke of the weight lifted from his conscience, knowing he had not failed the Parker family, the system had. The case prompted both Russian and American authorities to review other Cold War-era disappearances along international rail routes. Similar operations were uncovered across the former Soviet Union, leading to the resolution of dozens of missing persons cases. Families who had lived with uncertainty for decades finally learned the fate of their loved ones. Catherine Murphy's comprehensive investigation resulted in a classified report that reshaped intelligence agencies' understanding of Cold War-era operations. While most details remain secret, the publicly released summary emphasized the need for stronger oversight of covert operations and better protection for civilian populations. The hidden compartment where the Parkers spent their final moments was preserved as evidence, but will never be reopened. Instead, Compartment 214 on modern Trans-Siberian trains carries a small bronze plaque, bearing the Parker family's names and a simple inscription in Russian and English. Truth endures, justice remembers. In the years following the case's resolution, the Trans-Siberian Railway continued its journey across the vast Russian landscape. But now, as the trains pass through the endless Siberian nights, their passengers carry with them the knowledge of what happened to one American family who embarked on what should have been the adventure of a lifetime, only to become caught in the deadly machinery of history's darkest games.